In this week's episodes, first is Witness. Clark has an encounter of the fourth kind and is thrown into the fire when he witnesses a robbery. Then in Accelerate, Lana is seeing dead people. This is the Smallville Chronicles. Hello and welcome back. We are so close to the end of season 2. I'm Lou Gonzalez, joined as always by Alan Muir.
Man, were these episodes not that great?
Yeah. There was interesting stuff, and there's a lot, especially I think in both of them. There's like foreshadowing stuff, like heavy, that'll play into the rest of the series.
Well, they brought back some. They referenced something from season 1. The level 3 experiment.
Oh yeah, it gets referenced in both episodes, I believe, right?
Yeah, I think so.
And then we have the kryptonite like cache that Lionel has is in the first one. And there's other things in both episodes that play into the end of this season and into next season with the honeymoon thing.
That Lionel's interactions with Chloe.
Oh yes, Lionel's interactions with Chloe. The kid in the second one comes back next season. Or a version of her, I should say. There's a lot of teases to like foreshadowing, but otherwise these are kind of really goofy ass episodes. But I guess we can start. So our first episode is Witness. I feel like this is pretty cut and dry episode. There's a little bit of B and C plot, which is kind of just carryover from the whole season, which is basically the tension between Clark and Chloe.
Yeah, and to quote Clark, he says every time Chloe sees him talking to Lana, she's acting like he's cheating on her.
Yes, which is entirely accurate.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see as we go through how that stuff plays out. So basically we start off this episode with that, and they have like a falling out because Clark doesn't get some story on the debate team turned in, so then he quits the torch. This leads him to leave the interaction he has with Lana early. I think this is also where we learn about the horse thing.
Yes, the horse riding or whatever it's formally called.
Yeah, I don't remember. It's like an equestrian thing.
Yeah, and she is really excited to get tickets because she got tickets for Henry. And
yeah, Henry and his wife.
Yeah. Which then leads to a very I don't want to say depressing, but very cliche thing with Jennifer when Lana and Chloe are in the car, and Lana sees Jennifer kiss another guy leaving a shop, and she kisses him on the cheek or something.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, yeah, they kind of do like that weird little kiss. And then the other thing we get is, so after Clark leaves, we see like two guys with crossbows. take down a van. It flips over, and they just like do this by standing there. Clark appears. He tries to stop them. He gets thrown, and then he gets up, and he gets cracked with like the back of the van's door and tossed. And they basically get away. And as they're leaving, he X-ray visions the guys through their really bad alien masks and sees that one guy has a metal plate in his head.
Yeah.
Then there are a couple of interesting things.
Well, that, and he notices that the perp is wearing a class ring, which means he must be going to Smallville.
Exactly. Which it didn't have a red. I don't know if you noticed this, that the thing was not red.
Yeah.
But I think in one of the episodes they talked about how that got changed out because of Chloe's thing. Chloe's like article on it.
Yeah, her expose.
So Clark goes home, tells his parents about it, and they're like, why didn't you call the cops? He's like, no, I got the hell out of there because I don't want to deal with Sheriff Adams.
Yeah.
Which I do like that this is kind of carrying over. And she's also involved in the next episode as well. For like a second. And then literally the next day at school, I guess it's meant to like say that like Clark is just standing there next to Pete, X-ray visioning everybody's head.
Yeah.
Because he just like turns the corner and like, boom, it's that guy. And I think at this point I still did not realize who it was. So we meet Eric Marsh, and we get like the backstory from Pete. And I did not realize yet, but this is actually, so he is played by Zachary Ty Bryan, who played Jonathan Taylor Thomas's older brother on Home Improvement. And I completely forgot he's in this episode, or he was in an episode. And this is kind of one of the last things he did in his career of note. He did a bunch of like bad TV movies and stuff. So basically, Eric is awesome at baseball, and he's like crushing the ball at batting practice. And then we see him, well, before he starts swinging, he like takes an inhaler that's full of green stuff.
Which is obviously kryptonite.
Yes. Which, it's so obvious that like, how could no one notice that he's like inhaling this thing? Like, it was so weird. But then he hits that weird home run off of I believe, so he basically eyeballs that Clark is eyeballing him. Then he hits like the ball into the scoreboard right above Clark and Pete.
Yeah, into one of the lights.
Yeah.
And just destroys it.
So then we go to one of the better scenes of this episode, which is Lionel at the mansion with Lex. And this is where we get the whole, oh, he's just there to like talk to him about his engagement, which is obviously BS, which Lex calls him out on.
Yeah, and the fact that he on purpose forgets.
Her name, Helen's name.
Yeah,
he does it twice, and then gives him the gift to the wedding, which is a trip to a private island, and he tells him he could even use the Luther jet, which is all stuff that will come into play in the next season, I think, right?
Oh my god, it's extreme. It's as if they just took a big card and wrote foreshadowing in all caps.
Exactly. So this is also where Lionel's like, oh, I did you a favor by offering her, what was it, like $100,000 or $10,000 to leave you?
Yeah.
But this is one of the better scenes. From here, we go to the scene with Henry Small, shows up at the Talon and basically tells Lana that he's going to go to the thing. And then we go back to, I believe this is when Clark is in the the Torch doing some research with Pete, and he finds out that Eric went to like some science thing in the summer at Kansas State, and it blew up, which they don't say, but the newspaper says, which I guess is where he got the metal plate in his head.
Yeah.
But it's also interesting that like they this is like the first athlete in the show that they don't play as a dumb jock.
Yeah, because he went from nerd to jock.
Yeah, well, he always played baseball, but basically Pete was like he was terrible.
Yeah, he was specific. The specific line was he was basically a bench warmer.
Yeah, but this is the scene where we get the whole where Clark talks about Chloe looking like every time he's with Lana, he's cheating on her, which I did love Pete's joke when she's like, "Oh, I thought you quit," and Pete's like, "That's an option." And Chloe just like gives him a stare, and he's like, whoop, 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 whoop. He does like a Zoidberg out of the room.
Yeah.
Because he just like leaves, and I was just like, oh, that was actually like a good moment of like, that is a joke somebody who like knows they're in like a super uncomfortable situation would make. And then they basically leave saying that they're breaking up their friendship, Chloe and Clark.
Yeah, and they're treating it way more dramatic
than it is.
Yeah. I mean, I had a childhood friend. I had a friend from like who I was friends with from since like childhood, and the whole friendship just ended because of a stupid Gears of War match.
I basically lost a friend because I did not like Cloverfield. So, like, I can get that. But yeah, it's not, like, I guess I can kind of get in the show because they're high schoolers and everything is super dramatic. I don't know. It's, like, this super weird love, like, the forced love triangle when it's so obviously, even at this point, it's like, no, Clark has, like, no romantic feelings for Chloe anymore, the way they're writing him. Oh, man. Well, from here, we get back to, I guess, the more interesting parts of the episode. So Clark follows Eric to the foundry, which is some place, and they're melting down the meteor rock and refining it even more and turning it into a liquid, which is what they are then putting into inhalers and, I guess, taking in the vapors of it. It's like proto-vape pen of kryptonite. And they see the two guys leave, and Eric is working on it, and then Clark is hiding, and then they immediately know where Clark is and like start beating the crap out of him. And then one of the best scenes I think in an episode we've seen, like, it's really heavy. They open up the furnace and throw him into it.
Well, there's two things I just wanted to make a note of. Did you notice how terrible the effect of marsh?
Oh, the vapor, the green vapor.
Yeah, it looked like something out of Batman and Robin.
Oh yeah, it was so like After Effects, which I don't even think was a thing yet. Like, there's some bad CGI in these two episodes. This is like the smoke effect is one of them. In the second one, the rain is the other.
Yeah.
But I did like the so they leave, they haul ass in their yellow pickup truck. And then we see like the hand on the door, and then Clark opens it and he comes out, which is why I did my intro the way I did. Is like he comes out so Terminator. Like, it's so like with the 1 foot forward. Like and then they have the scene with him naked. It totally reminded me of like T2.
Yeah.
So maybe if I feel up to it, I will put T2 music in during my read of that part. Da-da-da-da. Da-da. I don't know. I can't remember the theme right now.
Bum, 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 bum.
Yes.
Also, did you notice I forgot what movie it's from. I think it's Titanic. The hand on the glass.
Oh yes, yeah.
When slowly going down.
Yeah. That's like such a like horror movie trope. But yeah, like it was. They only sit on it for a second. The next scene is ridiculous though, which is when Clark shows back up home, like covered in soot, with
with
the
like
overalls.
not necessarily overalls. It's mainly a jumpsuit.
That's it's like a jumpsuit thing. Oh, I do want to mention. So his burns healing, I thought was actually done really well when he comes out.
Yeah,
And they also do.
It looked very X2.
Yes. Which this has got to be close to the same time as the first X-Men, at least, right?
X-Men 1 came out in 2000. X2 came out in 03.
So this is the exact same. This is 03, so.
Yeah.
So that's pretty good effects. I did like that they do whatever they can to show as much as they could of a teenage boy's ass.
Yeah.
It is ridiculous. So Clark shows back up at home, and basically his parents are like, what the hell is going on? And they're like, oh, you gotta call the police. And they're worried about exposing Clark's secret. And then this is when they leave an anonymous tip, and Eric gets arrested at the field by the new sheriff. There's a lot of these like kind of small, like 2-second scenes, which is like him getting arrested and Clark arriving home that are just, it's just like, oh, we have to move the plot along. Here's a quick scene. And then we cut to another quick scene.
Yeah, then there's also the bit where he goes into the office, or the torch office, and notices that everything's fucked up.
Yeah, that's in like a couple scenes from now. Because first it's the next scene is when Lana and Chloe are in the car and they see Mrs. Small, and then she goes in and basically tells Lana that she's divorcing Henry, and this was like, well, I was like, wow, this woman is a piece of garbage, because she basically says, oh, I'm divorcing my husband because you came into our life and he cares more about you, his long lost daughter, than he does about me, his wife. And even though you're a teenager and this is way too much to put on your plate, yeah, it's your fault, you win, I give up. I was like, wow.
Yeah, what was this? What was the actual line? It was like, this is me admitting defeat.
Yeah, it's like, this is me admitting defeat, you win. And Lana's like, I don't want to win.
Yeah.
It's just like, it was so much. Like, I was just like, wow, this woman's really shitty. Like, I don't know. It's weird. And it's a lot for an adult to put on a teenager. Because it's one of the things I have to remind myself is that these are teenagers.
Even though they look like 25-year-olds.
Mm-hmm.
Or even though they are 25-year-olds.
Some of them are fairly young. Like young-ish. But they're older than like they're playing. Like they're supposed to be playing at this point, what, like 16? And they're like 19, 20?
At this point, they're
sophomores.
They're supposed to be 15, 16. And in reality, they're being played by actors who are in the early to mid-20s.
Yeah, which is why it doesn't look weird when Lex is around, even though it should be super, super weird. Which I do think, like we were talking about before we started recording, like in Homecoming, like it makes such a difference when you actually have younger kids playing high schoolers, of how much more realistic it looks.
Yeah.
Because I can't remember, Holland was what, like 17 in the first one when they filmed it? Or in Civil War, I think he's like 17 and he's like 18 in Spider-Man Homecoming. And they at least kind of look children. He's kind of getting out of that realm now. All of them.
Yeah.
But back to this episode. This is where we get the Chloe and Lionel confrontation.
Which is a major catalyst towards the third and fourth season.
Yes. And basically Lionel's like, oh, I know all about you. And she's like asking him like hard questions, kind of. And he just kind of brushes her off, but acknowledges like who she is and stuff. And then this is where we cut to the next day. Or no, we cut to the town and Clark goes to talk to Lana. He tells her about getting into a fight. And she tells him about the visit with Jennifer. And they kind of he kind of tells her that she should talk to Henry, and then Lana tells him he should talk to Chloe, and Clark basically doesn't inform Lana that, unlike the adult, that she is actually the reason that like her and Chloe are having issues, and he doesn't put it on her because he's more mature than an adult woman.
Yeah.
And then, so this is when we have Clark go to the torch, and the torch, like, ransack doesn't explain enough, because when we see it, like the support beams of the room were broken in half.
Yeah, I wonder who did that.
Yeah, well, it's definitely heavily implied that it was Eric, because like when Clark tries to comfort Chloe, and then she basically is like, "No, I'm going to go look for a friend," and then as he leaves, Eric is like, "Oh, it's so terrible. What happened to the torch?"
It'd be a shame if something happened to your parents.
Yes. Oh, we did skip a scene. Did not realize where it was. But at some point after Eric is arrested, Lex goes and talks to him, and basically is like, "Oh, you could use a friend, because like if you get convicted of all this, like you can kiss all your millions of dollars in professional contracts away." But so yeah, Lex bailed him out. So then Clark super speeds home, and he finds Jonathan and Martha. I can't think of another word besides like crucified on like the board.
Well, here's the thing: Martha is crucified.
Like she's straight up, like her arms are like spread. I'm looking at like the image now. She does have like a support thing, like they both do. But they both are crucified, but she's unconscious. Jonathan's kind of at an angle.
He's sort of on a diagonal.
Yeah,
and he just looks silly.
He looks silly. Martha looks dead.
Yeah, and taking into account that she's pregnant.
Yes, which they do a lot to her in this episode for her being pregnant. She's also really not in either of these episodes very much, like at all. So this is where Clark goes and confronts Lex about spring Eric, and he says, "I went and did that for Eric because I think my father's re-implementing the level 3 experiments, and I thought he would tell me, but the guy I had following him, the security guard, he beat the crap out of, which this is the second episode in a row where one of Lex's security guards or security people got like found out and taken by the person that they're supposed to be following." And then they had to basically figure out a plan that obviously Eric has some sort of mole in Luthor Corp, and that if Lex puts something out, that they're going to be moving more kryptonite. Or at this point, he's just saying meteor rock still to everybody but Pete, that they'll show up. And Lex does not want to involve the cops or want Clark there. And this is when we get, I think Clark goes back home and talks to Jonathan about them leaving town.
Yeah, he wants them to get away until he figures he fixes things. And Jonathan wants Clark to go with them, but he can't do that because he's the sheriff.
Yeah, I actually think this is my favorite scene in this episode, because like Clark is out Jonathan.
Well, there's also a Jonathan line that is pretty killer. And that's, they may have your strength, but they don't have your powers.
Oh, yes. I thought you meant like these, like, because Clark says, "I'm worried about you, Mom, and the baby." And he's like, "Yeah, I'm worried about Mom, myself, and the baby, and you too." But yeah, you're right. Like, this scene is like really good. Like them going back and forth about like out stoic savioring each other. And basically Clark wins the argument, and Jonathan decides to take Martha to a doctor in Metropolis and maybe stay there for a couple days.
I thought they were spending it. They were gonna.
Oh, they're gonna spend it
with Martha's father.
Yes, but I think he says he's gonna take her to a hospital to get checked out,
and then go.
Yeah. So from here, the plan is coming through. So Lex is talking to his people. There's like, he has a guy in the truck, and there's like another, I think there's like another security guy there as well. And like, as he's saying, it's like, oh, don't do anything until I give the order. You want to catch them in the act. And then like, before he can say like the next thing, he gets like he gets karate chopped to the back of the neck. So,
which should have paralyzed him.
Yeah, instead of Clark doing the tap on, like the Luke Cage tap on the forehead, he like, it's literally like a karate chop. I guess they like were like, oh, just hit him and knock him out, and he was like, okay. It does like karate chop action.
You know, when I saw that scene, all I was thinking about was GoldenEye.
Oh my god, yes, that's hilarious.
It's been over 20 years, but I still remember.
Yeah, that's like one of the most seminal games of all time. From here, though, we move to the big super fight. So,
yeah, talk about more CTEs.
This is like the most ridiculous and bad super fight I think we've had. So Clark fights 3-on-1. He gets the drop on the first guy. Then he gets immediately surrounded. Each of them holding like a metal weapon. So like, Eric has like a pipe, and the other guys have like rebar. And then Clark just decides to stare up at the ceiling at like these pipes hanging, and the guy like looks at him staring at it, and then looks up at it. And in the
no!
Yeah, in the slowest trash, and then Clark visions the thing, and and a bunch of, it's so slow. Like he's just like, what's he looking at? Why is he looking at them pipes? Oh no! So bad guy one is or bad guy number 2 is taken out, because I don't think they ever get names. The other 2 guys.
Well, bad guy 2 is dead.
Oh, the one that is that the one that goes to like oh yes, Clark super speeds behind him and then like throws him into a wall?
Actually, no. I stand corrected. Both of the henchmen are dead.
Yeah, like Clark super speeds behind him, and I can't. He like doesn't he throw? He ends up getting tossed and lands.
He takes the long thing and wraps it around him. And then just tosses him aside.
Yeah, and he lands in the pile of the pipes that the other guy's underneath.
So.
Yeah, and then Eric is like, what the hell is going on? I'm like scared. And then Clark, he picks up like a giant cinder block thing and hits Clark over the head with it, which it does nothing. And then I believe Clark like throws him against the wall too.
Yeah, but he does it with safety. Unlike the other 2, which he just killed.
Yeah. So this ends this, which I have a ton of problems with how this wraps up this story.
Yeah.
So then we go to Pete is burying the meteor rocks out in the woods. The next day, Clark goes to the mansion and talks to Lex, who has poured 2 glasses of orange juice, I guess knowing Clark was on his way there, and hands him one. And basically, Lex says that he has suspicions about what happened to everything. And then we see Lana's conversation with Henry Small, which this is the last time we see him ever in the series. So even though they have this really intense conversation, which is like, I actually think this is the best acting that Kristen Kirk has done in the show, is this right here. Her like trying to not like cry was really well done. And then she goes to the Kent farm and steals Clark away. And basically Clark kind of convinces her to do the thing anyway, the horse thing. I don't know what it's called. Some sort of contest. And then we get the other big foreshadowing scene, which is Lionel showing up with the torch. And basically says to Chloe that he's going to donate money just for it to be rebuilt. And also get her a column in the Daily Planet
Yeah, which there's no way that would work.
Well, he has enough influence that he could get it to that, but like she kind of questions like why, but he never gives. Anytime she says why, he just is like, oh, like because I like that you're like I want the truth too. Like I think that things need more new blood, blah blah blah. And she never is like, oh, I'm making a deal with the devil, which is obviously what she's doing.
Which will have heavy consequences at the end of next season.
Yeah, because doesn't he like have everything bugged in there?
Yeah.
Okay.
And he literally tries to put a hit out on her.
Yeah, because they also intimate that. So the three guys got arrested. They come clean about everything except about destroying the torch. And it's kind of just like left there hanging. But it's pretty obvious that it's implied that Lionel had the torch wrecked.
Yeah, I think it was Clark who said it. And it was something along the lines of why why say that you did these terrible things or these very bad things, but this not so bad thing you denied doing? But then again, Lionel is a master manipulator.
Yeah. So that wraps up this episode, but there's like a ton of things, or not a ton, there's a couple things. So one, this is the last we ever not only see of Henry Small, but ever talk about him. So they never mention him ever again in the rest of the series. So like I guess they just didn't know what to do with like that revelation in season 2 and just ignore it for forever. And yeah, we already talked about all the foreshadowing stuff. The other thing that really bothers me is they basically right away that the three guys are arrested and they're refusing to say what happened to them. Why? What does it do them to not say anything? Unless the implication is that like Lionel is paying them to keep their mouth shut.
Or, and hear me out on this one, he employs them.
Okay. The only other thing I thought you were going to go with, they're so concussed that they don't remember what happened.
Well, not just that. They're all in comas.
But yeah, that bothered me so much at the end of this. I was just like, ugh. Yeah, it would have been much better if they made it more, I don't know, what am I saying? Like, more explicit. Like, that Lionel did something with it. But was there anything else you want to talk about in this episode? Did you have an MVP or LVP?
My MVP was Welling.
Yeah, I would say like his conversation with Jonathan had him win the episode for me too. I honestly don't know if I have like an LVP. Wait, no, Mrs. Small.
Yeah,
I forgot she was even in this episode, but yeah. But otherwise, like I don't know, this is like pure filler except for all the foreshadowing stuff, which is one of the things that I guess Smallville did really good is that like no matter what episode, there's always stuff in every episode that ties in. Like they don't have real.
Every episode has at least one thing that is important to the plot and story, like the overarching.
Yeah, there's no like real pure filler episodes. Yeah, but I think we can move into the second episode, which is Accelerate. So this is a weird episode. So we start off with the gang at the Talon watching an old horror movie, which is. Did you see which movie it was?
I have no idea.
They are watching House on Haunted Hill, the original one from '59.
Wow.
So, which I'm guessing Warner Brothers had the rights to it, because that way they didn't have to pay for anything. So we get
I wouldn't be surprised.
So the only thing of importance in this is that when Lana gets scared, she grabs Clark's hand. After this, we see Lana by herself cleaning the movie theater, and we see like a video of childhood Lana playing with another girl, and then this little girl shows up out of nowhere and freaks her out until Clark shows up, and then the girl is gone. Spooky. This would have been worked much better as a Halloween episode, but this came out in May. So, wow. Yeah. So then we go to Lana in her bedroom. Again, we see this Emily, and this is where we learn that Lana tells Emily that she died 6 years ago. And Clark comes into her room, and Lana's convinced that she's seen a ghost, and they go to the bridge. I'm rushing through all this because this is like quick cut, like these things. And basically tells the story that Emily slipped off the bridge and drowned. Clark suggests that they go and talk to her parents, which Lana doesn't know what happened to the mom, but she knows the dad moved to Granville, which we then go to Granville, and we meet the dad, which is the guy who played the janitor in Scrubs.
Yeah, and it was also in The Fugitive.
Yeah, he's also in like a hit TV show right now, isn't he?
The Middle.
The Middle, which has been going on for like 7 years or something.
It's been going on for nearly 10 years.
Oh my god. Because I know like the one little kid is now like not a little kid. And the daughter is like doing like kind of starting to do like real movies and stuff.
Yeah, and the other son was in Hot Tub Time Machine. And that was it. That's it for his career.
Well, that show's still going, so I'm sure that they'll that's like one of those shows that'll be on TV forever because they have so many seasons.
Yeah.
So it's very like Malcolm in the Middle of a TV show, except that there's no real main protagonist, like the family itself. I don't know. You don't need to talk about that show. We're talking about this show.
Yeah, this show's much better.
So he basically is like, you guys are dicks for talking about my dead kid. Please get the hell out of my face.
Well, so, yeah, she said that, or Lana says that she's been seeing her, and I believe it's her or Clark that says if Lana's been seeing her, then there's no reason then you must have seen her. And he says, yes, I have seen her when I listen to her favorite music or anything that, or when.
Yeah, anything that reminds him of her.
Which you'd think is very endearing. But later on in the episode.
Yeah, his reaction is like a good reaction because he's like, why are you throwing this at me? Get out of my face. And so he leaves in his car and they're like, what? So then we go to the Luther mansion and we have Lionel showing up while Lex is trying wedding cakes. Ellen isn't there. This is I guess I got these confused. This is when this stuff with the honeymoon and the $100,000 conversation happens in this episode. As opposed to the last one. So you already kind of talked about that, but yeah, that actually doesn't happen that didn't happen in the last episode. It happened in this one. So now I don't even remember why they met in the first one.
I think it was a social call.
Yeah. I think he's like, oh, I just wanted to see you. Oh, no, I think he says like, oh, I wanted to come and congratulate you on your wedding announcement. And I'm glad I learned about it in
The Inquisitor.
The Inquisitor. So that was the first meeting. They're basically the exact same meeting, except this one is surrounded by cakes. I did really love Jonathan Glover eating the cake. It was like amaretto butter. And he's just like, oh, can I have a glass of water? The alcohol taste is overpowering the butter so much. It was just like pure, like, oh, this is like super rich and like indulgent. So while this is going on, Clark goes to the computers and the torch to research the thing when Chloe arrives, and she's like, when you hand in your press patch, you hand in all the stuff, which now the torch is like completely rebuilt.
Yeah.
I think they have newer Mac computers in it at this point, because they did not look like the giant bulky colored ones that they previously had. So, basically it gets her intrigued, and this is where Chloe's like, well, you don't know everything, like Lana doesn't, like, you're not there when she's crying in her bed alone at night at 3 a.m.
Yeah, when I heard that line, I was like, man, things are getting dark.
Yeah, well, like, I would suppose that, like, she's crying because of the thing with her dad, but also, like, okay, so you're telling this to Clark, but of course he wouldn't be there. Like, how many people are you going to be next to that are crying at 3 a.m.? But I think it's supposed to tie into, like, what happens, their conversation at the end of the episode. So, we'll get there. So, from here, we see Mr. Dinsmore, I guess, at his old house where he finds Emily, and she's upset that the bunnies are gone, and asks, like, why did Lana say she died? And basically, this all ends with her getting mad and throws a giant metal pinwheel through his body, through his gut.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh man, because he like falls forward, so it impales him even more. We don't actually see; we just see like the spike, and that it's like kind of bloody. I was like, man, he should not be dead from this. It's like through his gut, and I was like, oh wait, he's not.
Yeah.
So Clark and P go to the cemetery. Clark X-ray visions the grave to see if the body's in it. It is, and then Pete's like, dude, and hits him, and it's like, oh my god, the little dead girl is right there. Then she disappears, and Pete's like, oh my god. And then we get a interesting shot. The CGI effects of the raindrops is terrible, but I think the rest of it is actually cool.
We get a scene that was stolen or that was stolen from this and placed right in Justice League.
Yes. And that is, so Clark is actually able to follow her, and so she's not disappearing, she's moving at super speed. And he basically follows her, and they make eye contact. He follows her out of this, like, through the cemetery and into a mausoleum, I think is the correct word.
Yeah, where he finds the necklace.
Yes. So we don't find out really all of her power set in this episode, but we will later on down the line, of how she got out of there, because I was like, oh, how'd she get out of there? But they don't talk about it in this one, but in the other one, next season, they explain how she did. So we go to the medical center. Lionel's visiting Mr. Dinmore, and Lex arrives. And then when Lex goes to see him, he sees Emily, who's talking to him, and she's like, I don't like that guy. He's a bad guy. And then Lex turns back around, and Emily's gone. Clark and Lana go to Mr. Dinsmore's house. They're basically walking through this creepy house with all the lights off, and they find her bedroom with everything exactly as it was, with the journal. And then Clark sees that there's a secret switch behind a bookcase and opens it. And I thought this is one of the things I had an issue with. I was like, oh, is he going to ask Lana what was her birthday to put in? That's probably the code. No, he just like opens up the goddamn wall when she's right next to him.
Yeah, and it's basically an observatory.
Yes. So it's like a crazy lab. There's blue vials everywhere. There's 3 tanks with what appears to be people floating in them. Clark wipes off the second tank. So the first one is empty and open. The second one, he wipes off like the top of it and looks through, and it's Emily. Lana runs to the third one, wipes that one off, and it's also Emily. And then that Emily's eyes open, and she jumps back, breaking a bunch of glass containers holding Kryllian fluid, which is obviously kryptonite. And Clark is getting sick, and then he's like, we should get the hell out of here. And we go to the Kent farm where they basically had told Sheriff Adams about the lab, and she's like, oh, must have done, did she say a David Copperfield?
Yeah.
So it disappeared. And Clark goes back there. This is like one of those things that I hate that they do in the show where they just jump from like setting to setting super quickly. So we jump away from the house to learn that nothing is there, and then we go right back to the house. So Clark goes immediately back. He sees that everything is gone. And then this is when I believe he sees Emily sitting in a chair, and they have a conversation. And he's like, you're not her, like, and kind of gives her the truth. And then she disappears, and Clark turns around, and it's Lex. And basically is like, yeah, I saw her too, and found out that Mr. Dinsmore was what he was working on, which was growing a rabbit embryo to an adult in a matter of days. That's the title of the episode, Accelerate. Then we jump right back to the Kent's house. This is, again, I don't know if this bothers you as much as it bothers me, but like this jumping back and forth.
No, it's not just you.
Okay, because it's like, it is, so we went from the lab to the Kent's house, back to the lab, now back to the Kent's house. So Lana gets visited by Emily in a super creepy fashion, and then Lana goes to follow her to the river. Then we jump to a quick scene of Lex visiting Mr. Dentmore, and then he learns that something that is completely unscientific, that the experiment messed with her chromosomes, so she doesn't know the difference between right and wrong.
Yeah.
Which is not a thing. Like, that's not how chromosomes work. I guess this is supposed to be like a bad seed type thing.
Yeah, has to be.
All right, so Lex learns that. He confronts, I think this is like, oh no, we have the quick shot of Lana telling Emily what really happened. Basically, Lana's the one that fell in. Emily jumped in to try to save her, and in doing so, ended up getting herself killed, and Lana was able to survive.
And the clone does not like that.
And yeah, and the clone basically says, oh yeah, this time you won't. And super speed pushes her into the river. Which I did see a production note on this, which I was like, oh, this makes sense. Because, so in that scene, it's actually raining. So it was actually raining in Vancouver at the time. So they were actually supposed to do the stunt of Lana falling into the river, and instead they had to change it. So she actually has like a rope around her, and she gets pushed, and she just kind of swings under. And then everything else that they did was in a tank in the studio, which is why when they're underwater, it looks so clear and good and super deep. It's because it's in like a giant tank.
I am not surprised whatsoever.
Yeah. So from this, her getting pushed into the river, we cut back to the mansion again. Lex confronts him about the level 3, and basically the only thing of importance here is that Lionel, while in his meeting with the governor, tells Lex that the Kawachi Caves are now under Luthor Corp and not LexCorp's control. And then Clark goes in and saves Lana. I guess before that, well, I didn't realize. So Clark, after she gets pushed off, Clark shows up immediately and saves Lana. And she says, hold me. After he gives her CPR in the worst. I don't know, did you notice this? So when he's giving her CPR, he's pushing in the wrong spot. He's pushing her like abdomen, like her guts.
Huh.
Yeah, so he's like doing compressions, and by compressions, I mean placing his hands and like bending his elbows on her like abdomen and not her chest. Like he's trying to push the water out of her stomach. And I'm guessing it's because maybe he was uncomfortable with putting his hands on her chest, or maybe they were afraid of him putting his hands on her chest on like what that might I don't know, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
He's also doing this when she's not laying flat on her back. She's like on a rock. Like, it's just like a really bad CPR scene where it's like, oh, if you know anything about it, like none of the things that he has her set up would work because her like feet are lower than her head. He doesn't tilt her head back. He doesn't do it. All he does is like push on her guts and then blow in her mouth and like hold her nose. And then so she sits up water. She says, "Hold me." After the whole Luther thing, is Jonathan showing the crib to Clark, and then Lana shows up, and they talk in the thing that basically that she's afraid that Clark's going to see her for like not being perfect, and that it's going to destroy his vision of her. Blah blah blah. And then we get to like the craziest scene in this episode, which is the Lionel with Mr. Dintmore with like the two-way or the one-way glass.
Yeah.
And oh my god, this is like super dark. And basically Lionel tells Mr. Dintmore that he can't work on the project anymore because he's too emotionally attached. And he's like, but she's my daughter. And he goes, no, your daughter died. That is property of Luther Corp. And then we see Dintmore looking through the glasses. Lionel walks in with a gift. Emily is like, I don't like you. You're a bad guy. And he's like, well, why don't you see what's in here? And he opens up the box and it's a bunny. And then he hands that bunny to the girl. And then the scene fades to black with the credits, but like the talking's still going. And Lionel is still talking to her and like laughing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a weird scene, but it's like, oh, Lionel is savage. So that is where this episode ends. The couple of little things. So this is the 4th out of 5 appearances that Evangeline Lilly makes in the series.
Oh my god.
So she's like one of the background characters, I believe, when they're watching the movie in the beginning. And then, yeah, Emily Dinsmore will appear next season in episode... Oh my god, I can't find it. Why can't I find the episode? But she does appear next season, but it's a different actress because she ages up. And then yeah, I guess that's kind of it for like the kind of little things. But yeah, that's like the big, and also like the whole idea of like the human cloning comes into the show like heavy later on in the series.
Yeah, specifically season 7 and 10.
Yeah, and like I don't know, like MVP and LVP, I feel like everybody was kind of the same. My MVP is Jonathan Glover because that first scene with the cake, he is just chewing up the scenery more than he is that cake. But I don't really have an LVP in this one because there's not really many characters and no one's really doing a terrible job.
Well, my LVP is the child actress.
I didn't think she was that bad for a child actress.
It just something didn't feel right.
I get what you mean. I think she played like angry really well, like when she was mad or upset, but like her like otherwise was just like weird.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure. Would you? I guess I started this last episode. What would you give as a grade to each of these episodes?
Number scale or
like a letter grade? I put them at like a C.
First episode, C plus. This episode, C minus.
Yeah, to me, I'm like I don't think I ever have to watch these episodes again.
I mean, the reason if you look at it, these are two different takes on
Other people with Clark's powers.
not just not that really, but family.
Oh, yes, yeah.
Like with, for example, Lana and Henry Small, and
Oh,
then
yeah, I didn't even think about it that way. You're right. Yeah, like the kind of father-daughter relationship.
yeah,
Oh, that's an interesting look at it, like how these kind of match up as a pair. Hmm. So we do have 2 more episodes, so that only means one for us, of season 2 left. So our next episode is Calling, which is when Dr. McGlasses wakes up.
and is basically the big bad of the season, and gets not taken out immediately.
Yes. And then Lark and oh my god, I'm messing up their name. Clark and Lana kind of sort of cook up. And the second one is Exodus, which
Yeah,
is where I believe this is when Clark goes to like the Kawachi cave thing. Or with this is when Clark kind of does that weird Kal-El thing.
well, not something that, or in an interview that the showrunners of the show, or the Smallville showrunners did, when they compared season 1 and season 2. They wanted to be season 1 being Clark at his highest in terms of being a hero, and season 2 being his lowest point. I mean, if you remember what ends up happening at the end of the season.
Yeah, like this next episode is super interesting, or the season finale. But yeah, like this is I'm just like reading over like what happens. It's like, oh wow, this gets like super dark.
Plus, there is one thing we have that you can look forward to in season 3.
And what is that?
Cal
Oh yes, Cal.
versus Jonathan. And by that, I mean they had like an actual fight. Because Jor-El ends up giving Jonathan Kryptonian powers. So I'm really excited.
Yeah, I feel like season 3 is when we start to get kicked off into like the real kind of
More
Kryptonian stuff.
that and more standalone stories.
Yeah, both more standalone and also less like I'm trying to think of how to put it, but they do a better job of not just like doing these little hints at things, but kind of doing this like better overarching story. And like having stuff tie in like a little bit better and less of this like we don't get episodes like the ones we watch today as much. Like they're kind of they're a little bit better. And I don't know. I think that season 3 is like when they start to hit their stride in this show. and like they know what the show is. And then season 4 is, I think, the one that's like really goddamn weird.
Well, season 4 is when they started opening up. Like, okay, there's an episode of season 4 where, and this is going to sound very batshit crazy or batshit stupid. Clark and Lionel end up switching bodies.
Oh my god.
What and well, that I was gonna say something, but that would have been a big spoiler.
Yeah, it's like, I don't know, it gets into the weird stuff because I think, isn't that when, what's his name from isn't Jensen Ackles in season 4?
Jensen Ackles, it's the well, in season 3 they brought in Ian Somerhalder, who was Boone on Lost. He was a character on The Vampire Diaries. And they wanted to have something along the lines of a love triangle between, or a potential romantic, or they want to have romantic interest for Lana.
Oh yeah, because season 4 is when Lois shows up too, right?
Season 4 is Lois, Adam Knight, Bart Allen.
Oh yeah. Yeah, season 4 is when they start to get like really into like the expanded DC universe stuff. Oh, it's exciting. So after our next episode, we will probably do some sort of a bonus episode. Maybe we'll watch the Adrian Palicki Wonder Woman pilot.
Yeah, that would be perfect since she's in the next episode.
Yep. So we'll try to have some special guests on for that. But otherwise, I think we can leave it there. So you can check out me and Alan do a couple other podcasts. So every Thursday, you could check out on the Phantom Zone stream. We do a comic show with the two of us and John and Connor. And then every other Thursday, part of Los Horror, you can check out the Legion of Tunes. And you can find all those things on YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher.
And basically any podcasting service.
Yep. And check out all of the things at loshorror.wordpress.com, including your other podcast, which is Los Horror Games.
Yeah, and
doing amazing.
Oh my god, we're getting so close to 600.
So guys, don't forget, don't forget to also like and comment things, join the Facebook group, leave 5 stars.
Something I just want to tease listeners with a little glimmer of what can be expected what to expect from this week's episode of Let's Horror Games podcast. Hunter has as he said, a legendary rant about EA because they canceled yet another Star Wars game.
Oh my god. I think we talked about that in the comic show, didn't we, for like a minute?
Yeah.
Oh man. So definitely check that out. I know I will. And we'll catch you guys on the conclusion to Season 2 next week. So, I've been Lou Gonzalez.
I'm Alan Muir, and this podcast stands for truth, justice, and the American way.